Let me ask you a question. Have you ever found yourself lost in thought fantasizing about making a movie? Like a movie with terrific actors delivering the goods, shots of grand vistas captured by sweeping camera movements, an explosive soundtrack featuring emotive music and dramatic sound effects. Musicians imagine themselves on stage before the audience. Athletes imagine themselves reaching new heights in their sport. A chef mentally conjures a dish that will impress the critics. It might just be a fantasy, but there is nothing that exists in this world that wasn't at one time simply imagined. If you have found yourself imagining it, then after a while it's time to make the dream manifest into reality. A filmmaker is a person who tells a story via moving media. If you use a handycam to create a documentary about your grandfather's experience in World War II, then you, my friend, are a filmmaker. Most moving media is produced digitally these days. Just because we do not use actual camera film does not mean we are not filmmakers. So if you hear me use the term, then I am talking about all of us collectively. Before we go any further, let me ask you something. Do you want to pursue filmmaking to be rich, to be famous, or because you love making movies? You could say yes to all three, but if your first answer wasn't number 3, then I'm not quite sure I can help you. But if it was number 3, let's move on. Over the last 30 years, the marketplace for moving media has drastically changed. The limited theatrical releases and TV network offerings are a thing of the past, as today we hear about numerous theatrical releases each year, while there are hundreds of channels on cable TV, many new on-demand services, and limitless content on the internet. There are over 35,000 movie screens in America alone. Worldwide, these numbers multiply exponentially. There are hundreds of millions of televisions, and most homes are equipped with computers and the internet. The marketplace has found many ways to present a wealth of entertainment and information. Now more than ever, there is great need for content. For some reason along the line, we bought into the belief that it's not a real movie unless Hollywood puts their stamp on it, produces it, markets it, and unless everyone with TV or the internet hears about it from a TV commercial or some other plugs via the mass media. Most Americans consume product produced by the American mass media machine, as does most of the developed world. What I didn't realize until I searched a little harder was that there is a world of independent film out there just below the surface in America and booming in world markets. But take a look at a few new statistics. Hollywood studios collectively release 21% of their slate digitally in domestic markets. Over 50% of films submitted to Sundance are shot in digital. Considering that the big studios require at least $100 million return on investments in major features, indies are in high demand. Films like The Blair Witch Project have changed the face of the film marketplace. Blair Witch was sold to an independent studio for a paltry sum and went on to generate hundreds of millions in just a few years. America has turned its attention from network TV to cable television and to popular internet websites which feature home videos such as YouTube.com. The total number of videos streamed on the internet in 2004 was 9 billion compared to 300 million in 1998. And now you can earn a living wage from YouTube monetization. The future is moving media in your hands. Making it happen, from my experience, is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. You must be inspired each step of the way because there will be setbacks. The will to make it happen, the conceptual spark, is where the essence of creation lies. And remember that creativity is the willingness to make mistakes, while artistry is the wisdom to learn from them. And a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. But then you have to take the second step. When you're making your movie, each step is as challenging as the last, but each step is as rewarding as the last. It's one thing to join forces with a larger group or entity for purpose of a greater goal. However, to be the central force driving a project is quite another thing. I recommend gaining experience as taskmaster by working on smaller projects for a while. Skits, sketches, and short films are the best way to build up confidence for larger projects. I had my own public access show for 5 years before I decided to take on my first feature. By then I had all the skills necessary to take the plunge, technically and politically. I was by no means an expert, but the time was right for a larger experiment. Just remember that by assuming the job of being film producer, director, and even writer, you are taking the path of most resistance. I suggest learning the additional skill of delegation. You'll thank me later for that. And this is where we deliver one of our most important lessons here, which is they wouldn't mess with you if you didn't have something good going for you. Eleanor Roosevelt once said, "No one can make you feel inferior without your consent. The power of your enemies or your detractors, as the case may be, is the power that you give them." when you allow them to plant self-doubt in your mind. It is up to you to remove your detractors from your life, remove them mentally, and if necessary, call the authorities who will remove them physically. Avoid your detractors, better yet, ignore them. If you ignore them, they will go away, I promise you. Lastly, be confident. Take a look at the crap on TV. Take a look at the crap on the internet. Take a look at the crap at the theaters. You can do better. You have done better. You will do better. You know you are great. It's just a matter of time before the world discovers the greatness that you are. And always remember, the only person you are ever truly in competition with is yourself. Also, I recommend taking some time to seek out the first films by Hollywood's leading producers. You might be astonished. Everyone has to start somewhere. Just remember that the time to start for you was yesterday. The process. Pre-production is the most important phase in the filmmaking process and often the most time-consuming. Preparation cannot be understated in this phase. The adage, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, can be adapted to pre-production. If you get it right here, you'll save a lot of blood, sweat, and tears later. We begin with a story. The story is adapted into a screenplay or script. The screenplay might be altered, changed, or revised until the final shooting script is presented. The script details the character dialogue, description of action in the scene, and filmmaker technical notes. For big-budget features, the screenplay is offered to producers until it's purchased by an interested producer who hires a production manager who is in charge of either hiring other parties for the film's production or soliciting talent from agencies. The production manager will find a director, cinematographer, prop master, production designer, entertainment lawyers, production coordinator, production accountant, and a head of transportation. The production manager will likely have a staff of assistants who will learn aspects of the project, learn the film budget, and meet with the director for purposes of achieving production goals. If it is a low-budget or indie film, media distributors will be contacted and presented the project. Ideally, the project should be bonded, which is insured, to protect against unforeseen risks. It's not a bad idea to contact the administrator for the film commission in your state. If the film needs financing, prospective financiers will be presented portfolios. Now, for the rest of us, take your camcorder and roll. You're likely going to do everything from directing and producing to functioning as your own production manager and editor for a little while. Enjoy it while you still can. Typically, the production process, or production phase, is the most hectic stage of film production. Minutes on the set for pros can translate to thousands of dollars. Effective time management is essential. Time is taken to prepare the equipment. It is then that a long day of filming begins. Shots are filmed or captured with one or more cameras, perhaps numerous takes, until the director is satisfied with a take. Note: on the set, make sure to have someone take several digital still photos or video during production, but not during takes. You'll need these for purposes of marketing and distribution later. Post-production is the place where all the elements come together. Visual elements, sound elements, and music score are added to the scenes of action and dialogue until a cohesive motion picture is ready for the marketplace. Sometimes a film is shot with alternate scenes or an alternate ending. These are great for enhancing DVD sales later. Sometimes different sequences or different endings are also presented to test audiences until the producers settle on a final theatrical version. Alternate material is often added to the DVD to bolster sales and rentals. Funding. When you take money from outside sources, you give away more and more freedom. Freedom is more valuable than money. How much money do you really need to make your movie? With the prices of cameras and editing equipment falling, newer gear replacing recently new gear, and with so many people eager to be in a movie, you won't need to spend a lot to get rolling on your movie. Beg, borrow, or rent resources and use the gear that you have. Films that have jump-started the careers of major filmmakers have been produced on very inexpensive gear. Don't wait until you have better gear to make your movie. Make it right now. After your movie is made, you consider acceptance of funds for purposes of marketing and distribution, but for now your artistic integrity remains intact. What about grants for filmmakers? Non-profit or not-for-profit grants are occasionally given to charitable entities who do mostly biographies that cannot generate a profit. When you want to be a professional musician, you start out playing punk rock because you have cheap instruments and limited musical experience. After a while, you can earn enough money and improve your talent enough to start a heavy metal band. Later, you have enough money to buy better gear and the talent to start a blues band. When money is no object and you have fine-tuned your composition and performance skills, you can lead a jazz ensemble. This is the example I give people that want to be a professional filmmaker. You must start with your genre that is accessible to your experience and finance levels, but still has built-in demographic. Horror is a great genre to start with. Documentaries are great too. I started with a pseudo-documentary/comedy which featured a local landmark as the setting, which went on to delight the members of the Preservation Society for that landmark. My DVD also featured a separate serious documentary about the landmark that the Society was able to use to further their goal in bringing about community interest in their site. Later, the contacts I made through the organization helped me to secure a wonderful location for my next movie, not to mention various personal contacts and resources, but that's another story. Essential principles of the ultra-low, no-budget indie filmmaker. Your most valuable resources as an indie filmmaker are creativity, passion, hard work, time, and people. By people, I mean the people who will join you in your mission to create something. They are out there. More on finding these people to come. Your movie will have to have certain qualities to make it stand out. These qualities are uniqueness, authenticity, intelligence, talent, lack of convention visually or in the narrative, and experimentation, but not to the point of pretension. The most valuable elements to your production will be your story, your performances, and your project talent pool. But the first concern is the story. Before there were movies, there was theater. Before then, there were stories. Stories are timeless. Sometimes they are essential to the identity of a culture. The story is the essence of any film. You can't make a movie without a good, well-told story. The best filmmakers are great storytellers, even if they buy their scripts. Embrace your limitations. I wanted to shoot the last scene of Redneck Carnage in a hospital, but I couldn't get that resource. I decided to create a makeshift hospital in the woods with camel tents and cots and whatnot. This setting actually created a heightened sense of urgency and excitement, which worked out great for my storyline. It was a better idea than doing the hospital to begin with. All in all, your production values have to be just good enough. By all means, use your gear you have on hand and use it well. Make sure you know your equipment and how to get the best performance from it. Finding talent. There are infinite ways to secure talent and help your production. Here are a few that worked for me. Craigslist.com is an online classified site that is free to use and has been pretty effective for my purposes. Facebook.com is the website that is key for social networking and is a very easy way to market your project after you're finished with it. You can also create business cards and flyers and spread them around town. You can create a funny t-shirt logo and tie it to your project. There are infinite ways to get the help you need. Just make sure you find the right people. I always say you should shoot a teaser trailer for your movie before you ever shoot the first scene for your movie. This is a great way to find out who's on time, who's a prima donna, and who's got the skills. One of the most important points I can stress is that a hungry crew is an angry crew. If you're working a full day, make sure to have 1 or 2 meals served around standard meal times, and always keep plenty of drinks, especially water, and also snacks such as chips and crackers on hand at all times. Make sure you have restrooms available nearby. Also, make sure you know the availability of your actors at the beginning of the shooting day and stick with it. Try to schedule your shooting day according to individual availability and try not to work your people too hard for too long. It never hurts to have plenty of swag on hand. At the time you're getting your releases, you need to give your helpers and talent a little something for their efforts. It can be a t-shirt, a bumper sticker, or a button with your working movie logo on it. Everyone loves swag, and the swag functions as the peppercorn for your releases. More on this later. When considering child actors, you need to be very careful as there are very strict laws in the books regarding child talent. You need to check with your state for information regarding child labor and how it translates to child actors. Nobody knows how well your project will do. Do you have a hit or a flop in your hands? Well, whatever the case, if you have some really cool talent helping you to bring your dream to life and you can't offer them much in return, at least not at the moment, then you might want to offer them the gross participation consideration. I kind of set up a point system for my help and promise that if I see substantial reward or return on my project that I'll actually give something back. Nobody has actually decided what substantial actually translates, but at some time in the future, if I more than make my money back by way of sale or distribution on a project, I want to give a little something back to the people who helped me earn it. Either that or pay them very well on my next project. Releases. I cannot stress the importance of getting releases from your cast and crew. When it comes to equipment, my advice is to use what you have. Don't upgrade for a project unless you know that you'll utilize the upgrade after your project is produced. Depending on what you're doing, you might not need an upgrade. For instance, let's talk about cameras. What kind of camera do you need? I've learned a few things about cameras in the past few years, and here's what I can tell you. In broad daylight, the standard Handycam is going to capture about as good as anything. Newer Handycam cameras are cameras equipped to get a bit higher capture quality than ones from a couple of years ago. The thing is, learn how to shoot in the dark. But the most important thing to consider is the size of your camera. In my view, bigger is better, but heavier is not. Why bigger? Well, in order to achieve a truly graceful cinematic camera movement, you need a larger camera, or a way to move a smaller camera more gracefully. With practice, a monopod can achieve this effect. Frame rate? Many of the editing programs have 24 frames conversion for your footage. In actuality, cameras with the 24 frames per second feature write the capture in standard interlaced video but pull and rewrite redundant frames when dropping the footage to another location, another camera, your computer hard drive, etc. That is to say, if you don't have the 24 frames per second feature on your camera, you might have the frame rate conversion tool on your software. Don't forget to check. If you want the best picture quality possible, you might want to go out for something like the Canon DSLR cameras. Great cameras that were made for serious filmmakers. The picture can't be beat, especially indoors and at night. As far as holding the thing, you can buy the expensive micro gear. I have a tutorial on how to assemble it for a DSLR. Or get a shotgun mount for a few bucks. In regard to the color and the textures, I use a program called Magic Bullet to get my cinematic appearance. This, in combination with the 24 frame per second pull down, creates wonderful looks on my projects. What about standard definition cameras? In the years ahead, film might be completely replaced by digital capture. High definition may very well be the last nail in film's coffin. At the time of my producing this video, everyone is selling off their standard definition equipment for the new HD stuff. The HD format workflow is only now becoming streamlined. Personally, to me, before you go out and opt for the HD over the SD gear, you might want to keep in mind that you can really get a sweet deal on SD stuff now unless you're shooting sporting events, programs to be aired on TV or the big screen. SD is going to be an acceptable option for DVDs or anything you're going to put on the internet. Make your YouTube movies in SD. Don't sell out to the hype regarding HD, at least not till you have to. That SD gear is cheap right now, so go for it. Depth of field. You hear aspiring filmmakers talk a lot about P&S or depth of field. There are even those out there who believe that the depth of field can be applied to every single shot in a movie, or should be. Watch a film, any film, and you'll find shots that utilize the depth of field effect, but never do you see the depth of field effect throughout an entire movie. But don't believe all the depth of field hype either. You can actually achieve the depth of field effect very naturally with the DSLR cameras if you're into that. Lighting. The thing is, a lot of people shoot in low light totally wrong. They shoot in low ambient lighting for darkness. Instead, go completely dark with a spotlight on your character. This is the way they used to do it in the golden age days of Hollywood. This is the way you should do it. The effects of light and shadow are the thing of dreams, and as long as you get some real light into the camera iris, the contrasting darkness in your picture will be even darker, blacker. Try it, you'll see. Buy some of those mechanic clamp lights from Walmart for indoor lighting uses. Try an Oriental paper lantern for diffusing indoor light schemes. But also, a good light reflector for outdoor shots is very valuable. Sound. It has been said that it is more important that your movies sound good than look good. There's much wisdom in this statement. Some general advice about mics. Lapel mics are very easy to break. The talent never handled them properly, and they take a lot of time to set up. Radio Shack sells a good wired lapel mic, although the cord isn't long enough. If you can get close to the actor, you might consider using this one, or you can get the lapel mics with longer cords on Amazon or eBay or other places. The lapel mics have worked great for me in situations where the ambient or environmental sound was too great to use either a boom or the onboard camera mic. Boom mics. Sennheiser has a couple of great boom mics. I've used the ME66 for the past few years. I can't complain. When you get your boom out of the box, make sure that you click the little switch that eliminates the low sound spectrum, the low rumble. You might want low rumbles if you are capturing the sounds of nature, but for purposes of recording voices, not so much. When outside, make sure to pan the boom around till you find sources of unwanted noise, then point the back of the mic toward the source while aiming the tip of the boom toward the actor's mouth. Otherwise, put the boom high in the air and aim down at the actor. The reason for this is because sound bounces off the atmosphere more than it bounces off the ground. as close as you can to the actor's mouth without encroaching into the camera frame. For video cameras, back off about 4 inches further after the boom mic disappears from the frame. For some reason, the final product, as I said before, assumes about 5% more than what the camera operator sees in his viewfinder. Make sure you have a mic cover and windscreen. Make sure the mic operator holds steady and still with the mic as to not add any bumping noises into the mix. If the sound quality is lacking, it's usually not because of using a certain mic, it's because of the rate the sound is captured by video cameras. If you want the very best sound possible, you need to find a dedicated sound recorder or field recorder. Then you'll need a clicker slate so you can match up the sound and the picture in the editing process. Or you can just clap your hands. In other words, if you want hassle-free indie filming, just use the in-camera sound recording, but make sure that you are careful to be aware of when to use the automatic mic adjustment and when to use manual mic adjustment. Auto mic adjustment is best for when you want all the ambient sound mixed into your soundtrack. Go manual when you want to capture only the actors' voices. Music. Want music in your movie? Great idea. Nothing stirs the emotions like music. Keep one thing in mind, however. The greatest expense and headache for your movie project will be in the acquisition of copyrighted works of music. Better yet, make your own music or find any musicians to contribute to your movie. I like to use acid tools and embellish with my own guitar and keyboard work. I fancied myself a musician before I was bitten by the movie bug. Programs like Fruity Loops and Acid Tools are very popular. Legal basics. When the time comes to offer your movie to the marketplace or find a distributor, you'll need to have your producer's portfolio assembled for presentation. This will include releases for actors, crew, locations, and music. Additionally, be prepared to provide more information regarding the elements of your production. When filming, you must avoid trademarks at all costs. Always remember, no trademarks by Coke, Disney, or McDonald's should ever appear on your movie. What about the Super Size Me guy? Well, you don't want to deal with the super size lawsuits, believe me. You need permission to use copyrighted music, art, clips from TV and other films. The only exception to this rule would be any of the above which were produced before 1923. Luckily, some of my best friends are artists and musicians. The work-for-hire doctrine states that the employer owns the right to the work. The entity that pays for the production owns the right to the work. For this reason, you must pay your talent and help something, even if it's a check for $1, or a t-shirt, or a ham sandwich. Do not forget this. This is called the peppercorn. It's an important part of the release. As a filmmaker, it is only you that are responsible for your legal indemnification obligations. This means that you must make sure that you do not breach copyright or other intellectual property rights by using ideas, icons, or images that are legally protected. Depending on the scale of your production, you may need insurance to guard against accidental error or misuse. Make sure you get releases from all persons whose image or voice appears in your project. I like to get the person to write their name on a piece of paper large enough that I can read it from 5 feet away. Then I'll ask them to hold the paper up to their chin as I take their picture. What was the name of the extra who got bit by the zombie in scene 3? Don't worry, we have that information right here. Marketing. 40% of Hollywood merchandise is sold before the film is released. There's no mystery here. Movie merchandise is an effective way of marketing a film. Other methods may be billboards, websites, movie trailers, and of course word of mouth. It has also been said that there is no such thing as bad publicity. You could go as far as staging a bizarre public spectacle or finding a way of getting yourself arrested. I like to think that your work will speak for itself. Whatever you do, just keep it legal. Festivals. Some people focus on festivals, some people never think about them. To me, festivals are for films which have a solid story, solid performances, and produced with a high measure of skillful technique. I wouldn't worry so much about sending your zombie movie to a film festival, unless, of course, it's a ground-shaking, groundbreaking effort. But do send it to all the sci-fi and horror film festivals that you can. However, if you want to pursue the festival angle, make sure that you choose a festival that will have industry people, quotable press on hand, and at least some level of prestige. The A-list festivals are Sundance and the Toronto Film Festival. The B-list festivals are Tribeca, LAFF, South by Southwest, and Austin, and maybe Slamdance. After this, the list goes on, but unless you hit a ton of them, you'll have little effect. You might not want to enter any festivals unless you will be there in attendance. After all, it's all about the party, i.e. the networking. And keep in mind that although thousands of films are submitted to larger festivals, that only a handful are ever selected. The secret? Get to know the acquisitions department of the festivals. It's the only way. It's who you know. Distribution. They say the time to start looking for distribution is as early as the pre-production phase. The trick is that distributors might try to lure you into shaping your project to suit their taste or what they believe the taste of the market will be. Depending on who you are and how rigid your creative process is, you may or may not like this, but it's a fact of life when considering a distro agency. Usually, legit distribution companies will have you sign either for an American or North American distribution or a world distribution contract. They would do all the work and in turn give you a part of the take. If a distributor calls you before you've finished your first movie, you better run. Another idea is to look for distributors that have worked with companies like Amazon's CreateSpace or Netflix. Keep in mind that individuals can submit their own projects to CreateSpace and Netflix as well. These companies do promotion for your titles and have a search engine that places your movie into a searchable category. Always screen films in front of a select audience before releasing them. The test audience can help you decide what parts work and which parts don't, and which of your alternate endings plays the best, etc. The legitimate distributors told me that unless I had a named celebrity, I would not get distribution in America, or that if I did not amp up the nudity, sex, and violence, I would not get distribution in world markets. Interestingly, I've done okay as far as putting my movies on Amazon and eBay, especially. eBay, really? Check it out. Indie filmmakers who are lucky enough to get accepted by Netflix will find out that Netflix will buy at most around 100 copies of your movie, but will pay you little more than your expense to make glass master discs. And when you have to buy 1,000 glass master discs at once, that's a pretty hefty cost. I said before that Netflix might do some marketing for you, but don't count on it if you're an unknown producer with unknown actors. Amazon's CreateSpace is another route you can take, but they kind of keep most of the money for themselves. And so I decided to stick with selling my movies on eBay. Now then, after I put Dystopia on YouTube, it got popular right away. As the views went up, the monetization money came in. Who knew I'd make all my money back from the movie by putting it on YouTube? These are amazing times. So now I'm planning on putting all my movies on YouTube and focusing first on documentaries such as Paranorm. They are easier and cheaper to do, but still quite rewarding. Last bits of advice. Woody Allen said that 80% of success was in showing up. In the film business, it certainly is. You learn pretty fast who is serious about your project at call time. And just because the movie business might seem more fun than a regular job, tactfulness is of the essence. If you're late, don't complain about the traffic. The traffic is not responsible for you being on call on time. You are. Just apologize and get on with it. At the same time, I have to say that the best way to get resources and interest for your film projects is by going to networking events, by supporting other indie projects, and by joining groups and clubs whose main focus is the production and celebration of independent film. The true genius is the one who completes the project. If 80% of success is showing up, then the other 20% is completing your project. I mean, does it really matter how good your project is if you never complete it? If you are the author behind your project, you know the importance of the story. My advice is for you to write 20 minutes per day, whether you think you want to or not. Also, I recommend keeping a diary at the end of the day and writing down the most significant creative ideas of that day. If you're an author who is going to produce your own film, then try to write your own story around the available locations and other resources. You'll eventually have to make your story match your locations better sooner than later. Find people who are genuinely interested in your project to work with. Anyone else will pull your project down. Don't bring your personal life onto the set. If your significant other is there, they had better have a real task to perform. Don't bring ice cream if there isn't enough for everyone. Get it? Make sure you get 30 seconds of ambient production sound on sets, and make sure you get some cutaway shots and establishing shots at your locations. Don't forget, costumes and makeup are very important. Very. Fancy dolly shots, cherry picker shots, crane shots, and shots from the roof or the ladder might sound like a good idea, but maybe they really aren't. Don't go for any shots that look out of place in the collective scheme of your project. Make sure you have your script on set. Make sure you have a script supervisor on set too. You'll learn quickly that that's the person you'll most likely be willing to pay. Locations can be a real pain to find and even harder to secure. Try this. If you find a business location, for example, ask the owner if he would be willing to negotiate an exchange. Tell him or her that if he or she will let you shoot on their location, that you will produce a TV or internet video commercial or promo for their business. I've had plenty of good luck using this method, and remember to always pay great respect for locations. Make sure that you do what you need to do and get out quick. Leave the place better than it was when you arrived, and show the highest level of respect. Release forms. Release forms are very important, and they need to be written correctly. The most important indications included within these releases are 1. The indication that you offered someone payment or peppercorn for their service, appearance of image or voice. Not a lot of people realize it, but when someone performs for the camera, the footage physically belongs to the person who owns the camera, but the footage intellectually belongs to the person appearing on the tape. The exception is when the producer pays for the appearance. This is what we call the peppercorn, or the value received indication. Value received indicates that actors, crew members, and other contributors receive payment of some sort for their offering, even if it's just a button or t-shirt or ham sandwich, and as I said before, it never hurts to have plenty of swag on hand. 2. You need to make sure that you will have all rights in all territories in perpetuity. That means that you own the image or voice recording. Now I'm going to give you some ideas, suggestions, and insight that will further help you along your journey as a happy movie maker. The most important concepts in filmmaking. 1. Embrace your limitations. 2. Create a framework of available resources. 3. Decide not to spend money. 4. Make sure everyone who is involved with your project is on board. Most important elements of your film. 1. Story. 2. Sound. 3. Look. Most important resources you bring to your film. Creativity, passion, hard work, your time. The most important traits of your film. Uniqueness, authenticity, intelligence, texture/atmosphere. Experimentation, lack of convention but without losing sight of the other principles. Talent, take care of your talent, feed your people well. Interview at least 3 people for every crew and cast position. Offer gross participation or deferred payment. Stick to 12-hour days or less. Be careful of child labor laws for younger actors. Equipment. Get the best gear you can borrow or buy and make the most of that gear. A professional will get better results from a camera phone than an amateur will get from a $60,000 camera. Ways to make the most of your visuals. Experiment with lighting, multiple angles, lighting effects, framing the shot, camera movement, tasteful use of stock footage. Get the best shots and footage possible and do not think that you can clean it up in the editing, because you can't. Getting the most from your sound. Use quality mics. Have actors project their voices. The sound of your film is more important than the look of your film. Other tips for professional look, sound, and feel. Shoot in 24 frames for cinematic look, but many editing programs render into 24 frames per second, so you don't have to capture in that rate. Use depth of field. 35mm is said to be the holy grail of depth of field. Go for a DSLR camera. Write your story around locations you actually have access to. Legal basics. An effective release will say 2 things. 1, that the person waives all rights in all markets for perpetuity. 2, peppercorn, that they got paid in some way for the contribution. SAG. Once again, SAG is not a necessary evil. They are expensive and a pain in the butt, but you can still use them. I once again suggest finding local musicians to make the music for your projects. Look for license-free, royalty-free music online. Make your own music. And if you aren't extremely talented, you can take the minimalist approach, such as with the music in Eyes Wide Shut. Don't leave the house without a cheap set of walkie-talkies, a map to the location, your camera, fresh batteries, all the sound and lighting gear, extension cords, gaffers and or Gorilla Tape, your tripod, wardrobe, tape or film or whatever you're shooting on, storyboard, shot list, and script. Oh yeah, it's always handy to have some filming in progress signs so you're not alarming other people when one of your characters is running around with a fake gun. On set, have a still photographer on hand to take pictures during the production, but not during the filming. Secure location releases or permits or otherwise notify the authorities of all your activity. DVD production. Kunaki.com can produce your DVD package with no minimum order quantities. Save bonus material such as production stills, outtakes, or audio commentary for your DVD package. Your distributor is going to want to do this. For DVD rendered to MPEG, high definition, or other high quality rendering, if you're going to have your movie in the theaters or on broadcast television, you're going to need to render it in ProRes 10 or better. Distributors. Once again, distributors are going to want to see all of your releases, so be prepared to provide them. Also provide production stills, provide dialogue transcript, not your script, but the actual dialogue transcript from the film.